I was going to respond to Black Cat Feline's video, her last video on missed opportunities, in which I think she was right and she was wrong on some of the points. It was a very well done video, but I was at work today, and usually when it's a day, I look at my phone and I look at some stuff on the internet. Because I have a BlackBerry. Well, it's charging now, so I go on Facebook and I'm reading a bunch of messages saying that Larry Sweeney had died. Just a couple days ago, they were rumoring that Scott Hall had died, and that had proven to be false, so I was skeptical about it. His Wikipedia said he had died. Even Gabe Sapolsky's Facebook had reported he was dead. And, sure enough, when I went to Figure 4 online, they had confirmed that he had died of a suicide, and that he had hung himself. There's two things I want to talk about in this video. First off is my experience with Larry Sweeney, or me watching Larry Sweeney growing up, and pretty much death in pro wrestling, because it's a serious issue. But first, let's talk about Larry Sweeney. I had first discovered Larry Sweeney when I had first gotten into Ring of Honor. Back in 2007, you had those shooters that were mentioning Ring of Honor, and I didn't know how to access Ring of Honor. And eventually, when I learned how to access it, I started to want to follow Ring of Honor a whole lot more. And there was so much talent back then, such as Chris Hero, Claudio Castagnoli, Bryan Danielson. Who else was with them at the time in 2007? Matt Cross, Eric Stevens, Roderick Strong. Austin Aries was with TNA. There was El Generico, Kevin Steen, the Briscoes. There was a array of talent. And then, of course, you have your managers, such as Shane Hagendorn, Ernie Osiris. But then there was this one guy who held this faction called Sweet and Sour, and he went by the name of Larry Sweeney. Larry Sweeney, when I saw him perform, I mean, he was a manager, of course. He reminded me of Roddy Piper mixed in with Bobby Heenan combined. And he was very good at his role of, like, getting talent over. He was very good at putting, the heat on Bobby Dempsey, hoping that Bobby Dempsey would finally snap and break this motherfucker in half. He was very good at that. And I remember, like, watching him and being amazed at the talent that this guy had. And it's like what Dave Meltzer said on his Breaking Radio. If he would have been around in the 80s, this man would have been a legend. This guy would have been a star. But we live in a day and age where WWE doesn't have that many managers anymore. I think the last one that I could recall was Armando Estrada. But Larry Sweeney had the tools to be that. And that's what hurt me most about Larry Sweeney's death. Was that, I mean, I didn't know the guy personally. I didn't know him as a person. I do know that about a year or two ago, about two years ago, somebody by the name of A.G. Vito, who I talked to here and then, who was actually in the wrestling business, was telling me some of the stuff that Larry Sweeney was doing, like this backyard wrestling fed that he was doing in Houston, and how it wasn't going to work out. And that he was doing all this crazy loopy shit ever since he left Ring of Honor, or was let go by Ring of Honor. And apparently that he was one of those guys that needed medication in order to keep him steady. It's not a shock per se that he killed himself, because, like I said, I remember a couple years ago AG Vito bringing me the warning sign that this was going to happen. But it hurts me because when I saw Larry Sweeney 4 years ago, yeah, going on to 4 years ago, I saw so much potential in this guy that he could go into WWE, take any talent that needed it, and put them over. One guy that needed it was Bobby Lashley. If you would have taken Larry Sweeney, brought him in there, Larry Sweeney could have gotten that guy over. Bar none. Larry Sweeney could have made Bobby Lashley into a star. Because he had that potential. He had the potential to make anybody star. He's pretty much the reason people care for Bobby Dempsey. He's pretty much one of the key reasons that people care for Bobby Dempsey is because Larry Sweeney. Me personally, because again, I started watching Ring of Honor in 2007. If it wasn't for Larry Sweeney, I wouldn't have cared for Chris Hero. When Chris Hero was in Sweet and Sour Inc., because Larry Sweeney was just that good of a freaking heel. That's what got me into Chris Hero. And it hurts me to no end to know that a guy who I got to witness live, quote unquote, doing commentary for Final Battle 09, had killed himself at the age of 29 by hanging himself. And it pains me to see that somebody with such talent and such potential to be a legend. I mean, everyone was saying it. He was the next Bobby Heenan. He virtually was. Was he at the level of Bobby Heenan? It's debatable, but he was the closest you would ever get to Bobby Heenan. Now, which brings me to this next part. Before making this video, or before deciding to make this video, I remembered that I did not make a video for a few other deaths. Luna Vachon, Chris Kanyon, Lance Cade, Giant Gonzalez, Bastion Booger. There's probably more on this list, but I just can't think of it right now. But these are just a couple names over the last year have passed away at an incredibly young age. I could probably see Giant Gonzalez because the motherfucker was like, what, 7'8"? And Bastion Booger was a relatively large gentleman as well. But what bothered me about both Lance Cade, Luna Vachon, Chris Kanyon, and Larry Sweeney's death is the fact that this is a constant, rampant thing that keeps going on. And everybody knows about it. Everybody knows that there is death in wrestling. And Scott Hall kind of made a good point that there are more wrestlers that are alive than that they are dead. Does that mean that it should be investigated? Probably not. But the rampant rate of wrestlers dying at such a young age is really, like, alarming at this point. Think about it. Larry Sweeney was only 29 years old. Lance Cade, I think, was just hitting 30 when he died. Luna Vachon wasn't even 50. Chris Kanyon, I think was only like 46 when he had died. Since being on YouTube, making wrestling videos, I've been there for the deaths of Bam Bam Bigelow, Mike Awesome, Sensational Sherry, the Benoit family, Crush, Gary Hart. I know I'm forgetting some people. Test, Mitsuharu Misawa. Mind you, I'm only naming the people that were at age where it was a little too young to die. I mean, I'm not going to mention Moolah because she reached a long enough age for a lifespan. Same thing with Ernie Ladd and Arnold Skolin. But, and there's probably other names I'm forgetting. Please forgive me. But it's shit like this that just gets me bothered. Why is it that all these wrestlers are dying at such a fucking young age? And it's all for different reasons. Whether they killed themselves, whether they had cancer, whether it was a drug overdose, whether it was a heart attack, a heart disease, suicide, homicide, all that crap. It comes to a point where I get stressed being a wrestling fan. Because I now have to ask myself, who's next? Who's next on this fucking list, this laundry list of all these wrestlers that are dying at such a young age? I've been there for Eddie, and I've been there for Benoit. I was there for Owen. I was there for Pillman. I was there for Perfect. I was there for Rude, Miss Elizabeth, Earthquake. There's much more wrestlers that are on this list. I said Pillman. But just this laundry list of wrestlers dying. And it bothers me. I had always contemplated on making a video like this. And it wasn't until I heard about Larry Sweeney dying that made me go, this has to be made. Because like I said, Larry Sweeney never made it to WWE or TNA, and that's a shame, because he deserved it. He deserved to be on television. The guy had a presence to be on television, and the fact that he was never used on television, was never picked up by WWE or TNA is quite sad. Especially since back in 2007, when Larry Sweeney was, 2007 to 2008, when Larry Sweeney was at his best. Neither WWE or TNA gave him the time of day to, like, say, hey, we've got a couple talented guys here that just can't get over, and we want to get them over, so why don't we get him to put them over? It bothers me to know that at 29, the man suffered from chronic depression. Especially when he was no longer talked about after he had left Ring of Honor back in early 2009. It bothers me to know that he did not get back into the limelight. All I'm going to say is this. There is a problem. There is a problem with all these wrestlers dying at such a young age. And my opinion on it is, I don't want to see another wrestler die at a young age. It's especially somebody that I grew up watching. Even somebody that I didn't grow up watching. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see another wrestler die before the age of 65. It's crazy. It's crazy to know that all these wrestlers just inconspicuously just pass on. I hope to God I don't see another one go like this. Especially one like Larry Sweeney, who had so much talent. All I can say is this. It's tough being a wrestling fan. To all those who mock us for being wrestling fans, it's not the easiest thing in the world. Besides you guys mocking us for liking something that's apparently faking gay, we also have to deal with our favorites dying at very young ages before their time was up. And to be quite honest, Larry Sweeney's time was not up. His time should have started. He should have started making a comeback, and it just pains me to know that this is how his career has to end. Larry Sweeney, you were a very talented manager. I loved your work. You inspired me somewhat, to as far as a promo guy is concerned. And it pains me to know you took your own life due to your own depression. I don't know what else to say. Rest in peace, Larry Sweeney. And hopefully this curse of young dead wrestlers will stop soon.